One of the most interesting problems with the franchise system comes through the SBA loans. So the way it works is a franchisor isn't required to disclose their numbers, their earnings numbers on their FDDs. Again, those FDDs are the franchise disclosure documents that the FTC requires all franchisors to provide to potential franchisees at a certain time prior to the franchisee signing a contract. The franchisors are not required to disclose the numbers of their earnings on their FDDs, but many times franchisees need SBA loans in order to open their business. So the franchisee goes to the SBA lender, and of course the SBA lender needs certain numbers in order to ensure that the franchisee can qualify for the loan, to make sure that the business is going to be good enough to cover the loan. So the franchisor and the lender work together, and there's maybe some wink wink, and numbers are passed back and forth, and eventually the SBA loan gets made. And the franchisee gets into their new business, but maybe the numbers aren't really correct. What happens? The franchisee perhaps has built a restaurant, and the money coming into the restaurant to pay for the food isn't enough to pay off the SBA loan, to make the payments. So the franchisee gets stuck because, remember, the franchisee is in a very dangerous contract. When the franchisee signed for this SBA loan that now the franchisee can't make, the franchisee also signed a very dangerous contract with the franchisor that even included a personal guarantee. So now the franchisee needs to leave behind all of their money. They've got this personal guarantee on a franchise agreement that probably also includes future royalties they were supposed to be paying to the franchisor as part of from the sales of the food that they were going to sell in their restaurant. And so the franchisor can now litigate, remember that's what the contract was prepared for, it's got all those all-cap statements, litigate against the franchisee to take the franchisees home. Now, people are looking at this from the outside, talking about how great franchising is, and we see these beautiful franchise restaurants popping up all around us, and we can get some pretty decent food, especially for the ambiance. And, these restaurants may stay open for 10 years or so, but the hidden story behind the scene is that the restaurant may stay open for 10 years, but perhaps 3 franchisees owned that particular restaurant during those 10 years. The franchisor, once it retook the restaurant back from the first franchisee who lost a home, lost everything they owned because they had to risk everything to sign a franchise agreement, because that's the way the industry works. That franchisee lost the home, and then the franchisor sold the restaurant to the next franchisee. The next franchisee came in thinking everything was going to work, signed that dangerous contract. Lo and behold, another loan was made. The numbers don't work. Second franchisee loses everything. But that's okay, because the franchisor takes back the restaurant, sells it again to maybe a third franchisee. You get to eat wonderful food in the restaurant. The ambiance is beautiful. 3 families lose everything to pay for it. The franchisor is collecting franchise fees from every single franchisee and is making money off of the lawsuits, taking everything that the franchisees own, and then the world just goes on. People don't notice. Now, fortunately, Senator Cortez Masto of Nevada is introducing a bill to the Senate to help deal with some of these SBA issues. And, if we think about it, that's really, really important because, we did have a crisis about banks and loans selling, or, what does this sound like? Where have we seen this before? The banks keep getting to make their money off of these SBA loans, so they're incentivized to keep going, and then they just sell the loans off. The loans aren't any good because the restaurant isn't actually making enough money through the income paying for the goods and services it's providing to the public, to the consumers, to cover the loans. So the loans are going bad. The families are losing everything. The franchisors are getting what they need. They're able to expand their business, because remember, the brilliance of franchising is that if you have a successful small business and you can't afford to expand that business yourself, you can use the investment of other American citizens who also want to get into business, and they want to get into business not by themselves, but for themselves, right? So they can come on and be one of your franchisors. And, that's going to work because you get to expand. You get to build your restaurants. And, they did sign that dangerous contract. It was their fault. They should have known better than to sign that contract. And since it's their fault, go ahead, take their home. The banks sell the loans off. And, so it's great that Senator Cortez Masto is going to introduce this bill. And it's going, hopefully the Senate will sign it. Please call your senators. This is important. But the problem is that just because, okay, so the other thing that Senator Cortez Masto is going to do is she is going to make sure that the franchisors are required to disclose in their FDDs how much money they're making, what are their earnings, so that there is really a legitimate number that gets taken to the lenders, so that everybody knows. Because right now, the franchise rule doesn't even require that disclosure to be made. But here's the thing. Even once the disclosure is made, the FDD isn't worth much. I mean, right now, the FTC and the government has this idea that if franchisees get the information they need before they sign the contract on this disclosure document, then everything's fair and it's okay. But you got to remember, people, that the franchisees are all required to sign this very, very dangerous contract with all these all-cap statements that make it very easy for the franchisors to win in court. So the reality is, I'll tell some stories about this later, but what's on that FDD doesn't matter much because the franchisor has more power. The franchisor can win in court. The franchisor can take everything. If there are plenty of inaccuracies on those FDDs, the franchisee still loses everything because civil process becomes part of the fraud. The franchisors take their fraud to the courtrooms. They have these dangerous documents. They win. You have a system that's set up to allow fraud to happen, that isn't regulated at all, that is hopefully going to get some more regulation soon, but that needs even more regulation than what is being proposed in order to make it a fair arrangement so that United States citizens who believe in the American dream can really go out there and invest in something fair. They can go into business with other people for themselves, but not by themselves, without also having their homes taken from them because they signed a personal guarantee.